I'm standing in my kitchen in Aurora, Colorado, watching 2 police officers walk toward the shed in our backyard, and my husband is telling me I'm crazy. Again. His voice has that edge to it. The one that's become so familiar over the past 5 years. The one that makes me question my own sanity even as I know something is wrong. Claire, this is embarrassing, Derek says, low and urgent. You're making us look insane. Detective Sarah Kim glances back at us through the kitchen window. She's young, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that miss nothing. She heard him. I can tell by the way her jaw tightens. Then why won't you let them look? I ask. My voice is steadier than I feel. Because it's our property. Because this is harassment. Because you've been acting paranoid for months, and now you've called the police on your own husband over a fucking garden shed. The fucking garden shed that he built 5 years ago, right after we moved into this house on Chambers Road. The shed he keeps locked. The shed he told me was for lawn equipment, but I've seen him go in there at 2 a.m. with a shovel. I've seen him come out with dirt under his fingernails and a look on his face like he's been to war. If it's just lawn equipment, then there's nothing to worry about, I say. Derek's hand shoots out and grabs my wrist. Not hard enough to leave a mark. Never hard enough to leave a mark, but tight enough that I feel the threat of it. You're going to regret this, he whispers. Detective Kim knocks on the back door. Mr. Morrison, we have a warrant. We're going to need you to open the shed. Derek drops my wrist and pastes on his charming smile, the one that fooled me for 3 years before I started seeing past it. Of course, Detective. Though I have to say, this is all a huge misunderstanding. My wife has been under a lot of stress lately. The shed, Mr. Morrison. He pulls keys from his pocket with exaggerated slowness. I've never seen those keys before. He keeps them on a separate ring, hidden somewhere I haven't found despite months of searching. We walk into the backyard. It's October, and the grass is browning, leaves falling from the oak tree Derek planted our first year here. Everything looks normal, suburban, safe. That's what I thought when we moved here from Denver. That's what Derek wanted me to think. The shed is standard size, maybe 10 by 12 feet, painted gray with white trim. Derek built it himself over a weekend, turned down offers of help from neighbors. I remember thinking it was sweet that he wanted to do it alone. Now I know why. He unlocks the padlock. The door swings open. Inside, it looks exactly like a normal shed. Lawnmower, rakes, bags of fertilizer, pots stacked in the corner. Detective Kim steps inside, her partner Officer James Chen right behind her. They're wearing gloves. Derek crosses his arms and smirks at me. Satisfied? But Detective Kim is crouching down, examining the floor. It's plywood, nothing special. Except, Mr. Morrison, why are there fresh screws in this corner? Derek's smirk falters. What, these screws? They're new. The wood around them is old, but these screws were recently installed. She pulls out her phone, takes photos. Officer Chen, help me move this lawnmower. They shift the mower to the side. Underneath, the plywood looks different, cleaner. Detective Kim produces a screwdriver and starts removing screws. 8 of them. The board lifts away. Beneath it is dirt. Just dirt, but it's been disturbed recently. I can see that even from where I'm standing. We're going to need to excavate this area, Detective Kim says. Her voice is calm, professional, but I can hear the tension underneath. Derek laughs. You're going to dig up my shed floor because my paranoid wife thinks I'm hiding something? This is unbelievable. What's unbelievable is why you'd need a false floor in your garden shed, Mr. Morrison. Detective Kim stands, brushes off her knees. I'm calling in a forensics team. This entire area is now a crime scene. The blood drains from Derek's face. For just a second, I see something flicker in his eyes. Fear, real fear. Crime scene? There's no crime. There's nothing. He stops himself. Collects himself. This is absurd. I want to call my lawyer. That's your right. Detective Kim steps out of the shed. Officer Chen, stay with Mr. Morrison. I need to make some calls. She walks past me, stops. Mrs. Morrison, I need you to come down to the station and give a full statement. Everything that led you to call us today. Of course. And Mrs. Morrison? She lowers her voice. You did the right thing. Trust your instincts. Derek's lawyer, Marcus Webb, arrives within the hour. He's expensive, slick, the kind of defense attorney who specializes in making problems disappear. Derek called him before he called me after his one DUI 3 years ago. I should have paid attention to that. By late afternoon, there are 6 vehicles in front of our house. Police cars, a forensics van, an excavation unit. Our neighbors are standing on their lawns, watching. Karen from next door keeps glancing at me with something between pity and fascination. I'm sitting in the back of Detective Kim's car, giving my statement to a recorder. I tell her everything. How Derek changed 5 years ago. How he started working late, being secretive with his phone, spending hours in that shed. How he'd come to bed smelling like dirt and sweat at 3 a.m. Did you notice anything else? Any changes in behavior, routine, expenses? I think back. He took over the finances about 4 years ago. Said he wanted to handle the bills, that I didn't need to worry about it. Before that, we split everything. And you agreed? He said it was because he got a promotion, that he wanted to take care of me. I feel stupid saying it out loud. I thought it was romantic. Detective Kim nods, takes notes. What made you finally call us? This is the part I've been dreading. The part that sounds insane. I found a woman's driver's license. Hidden in his car, not mine. A woman named Rebecca Martinez. Detective Kim's pen stops moving. When was this? 3 days ago. I was looking for our insurance card after a fender bender, and it fell out from under the floor mat. Current license, not expired. I looked her up online. She went missing 5 years ago. October 2020. From Denver. The silence in the car is deafening. Do you still have the license? I took photos before I put it back. I didn't want him to know I found it. I pull out my phone, show her the pictures. Rebecca Martinez, 27 years old when the license was issued. Brown hair, brown eyes, smiling for the DMV photo. Detective Kim's face goes very still. Mrs. Morrison, I need you to send me those photos. Right now, I do. She forwards them immediately, types rapidly on her phone. Rebecca Martinez was reported missing by her roommate on October 15, 2020. She was last seen leaving work at a restaurant in downtown Denver. The case went cold after 6 months. Detective Kim looks at me. Where exactly did your husband work 5 years ago? He was a pharmaceutical sales rep. His territory was downtown Denver. Did he ever mention knowing Rebecca Martinez? No, never. I didn't even know who she was until I found the license. Detective Kim makes another call. I can hear urgency in her voice as she speaks to someone about the missing person case, about the license, about the shed. An hour later, a forensics team starts excavating the shed floor. They work slowly, methodically, photographing everything. Derek is in our living room with Marcus Webb, looking out the window every few minutes. He can't see what they're finding. Neither can I. But I can see Detective Kim's expression change as she crouches next to the dig site. She stands, removes her gloves, walks toward the house. Her face is grim. Mr. Morrison, I need you to come with me. Derek stands up. What did you find? Human remains. We're going to need you to come down to the station for questioning. The room spins. Human remains. In our shed. In our backyard. For 5 years. Derek's face goes white, then red. That's impossible. I don't know anything about... Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for suspicion of murder. Detective Kim reads him his rights while Officer Chen produces handcuffs. Derek's eyes find mine across the room. There's rage there. Pure undiluted rage. This is your fault, he hisses as they cuff him. You couldn't just leave it alone. You had to keep pushing. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you stop talking. Marcus Webb says sharply. They take him away. Through our front door. Past our neighbors. Into a police car. Karen clutches her husband's arm and stares. I sink onto the couch and start to cry. Not because I'm sad. Because I was right. Because for 5 years I've been living with a monster and I knew something was wrong, but I let him convince me I was paranoid, crazy, imagining things. Detective Kim sits next to me. Mrs. Morrison, Claire, I know this is overwhelming, but I need to ask you some questions. Are you up for that? I nod, wipe my eyes. When did Derek's behavior change? You said 5 years ago. Can you be more specific? I think back. October 2020, middle of the month. He came home late one night, said he'd been in an accident. A fender bender, nothing serious, but his car was at the shop. He was shaken up, jumpy. That's when the late night started. The shed building, everything. October 15th, 2020 was when Rebecca Martinez disappeared. The pieces clicked together. Derek hit someone with his car. Not just someone, Rebecca Martinez. And instead of calling for help, instead of doing the right thing, he brought her here. To our house, to our backyard. Oh my God. I'm going to be sick. Did you ever see anything suspicious? Anyone in the house who shouldn't be here? No, I was working nights then. I'm a nurse at University Hospital. I'd leave at 6 p.m., get home at 7 a.m. Derek worked days. We barely saw each other that October. Detective Kim nods. So he had the house to himself most nights. Yes. And the shed. When exactly did he build it? That weekend. October 17th and 18th. I remember because I had Saturday night off and he asked me to visit my sister in Fort Collins. Said he wanted to surprise me with the shed. I thought it was sweet. I laugh, but it comes out broken. I came home Sunday evening and there it was. Finished. He built a grave and called it a gift. Claire, I need to be straight with you. This is going to get very intense. Media attention, investigation, possibly a trial. Your life is going to be examined. Your marriage, your finances, your knowledge of what Derek did. You're going to need a lawyer. But I didn't know. I believe you, but you're still going to need representation for your protection. She gives me a card for a lawyer named Patricia Chen who specializes in cases like this. Cases where innocent spouses get caught in their partner's crimes. That night, I stay at my sister's house in Fort Collins. Jenna holds me while I cry, brings me tea I don't drink, doesn't ask questions I can't answer. The news is already reporting it. Human remains found in Aurora. Backyard. Local man arrested in connection to 5-year-old missing person case. My phone won't stop. Ringing. Friends. Co-workers. Reporters. I turn it off. The next morning, Patricia Chen meets me at a Starbucks on College Avenue. She's 40s, Korean American, with a no-nonsense air that I find comforting. First thing you need to know, you're not under investigation. The police have made that clear, but you need to be prepared for the defense to try to implicate you anyway. Derek's lawyer will say I knew. Derek's lawyer will try every angle. That's his job. My job is to make sure you're protected. She pulls out a legal pad. Walk me through your marriage. Everything, I do. How we met 6 years ago at a charity fundraiser. How he was charming, successful, attentive. How he proposed after 8 months with a ring that cost 3 months' salary. How the first 3 years were good. Really good. And then, October 2020, he changed overnight. Started being paranoid about me checking his phone. Accused me of not trusting him when I asked simple questions. Took over the finances. Built that shed, and acted like I was violating his privacy if I even mentioned wanting to see inside. Did he ever hurt you physically? I hesitate. Not really. He'd grab my wrist sometimes, corner me during arguments. Once he pushed me into a wall when I tried to leave during a fight. But he never hit me. That's still domestic violence. I've never said those words out loud. Domestic violence. It sounds too dramatic for what I experienced. But Patricia's right. That's what it was. Did you ever report it? No, I don't know what I thought. That it was normal marital stress. That I was overreacting. That's what he wanted you to think. It's called gaslighting, and it's very effective. Over the next week, more details emerge. The forensics team identifies the remains as Rebecca Martinez through dental records. The medical examiner determines she died from blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with a vehicle collision. There are also signs of strangulation. She was injured by the car, but Derek finished the job. They excavate the entire yard. They don't find anything else. Just Rebecca. Derek is charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and improper disposal of human remains. He pleads not guilty. Marcus Webb holds a press conference claiming Rebecca's death was an accident, that Derek panicked and made a terrible mistake by hiding the body. But he's not a murderer. Except the prosecution has evidence now. They've gone through Derek's phone records, his financial statements, his computer. They found searches for how long does it take for a body to decompose and police dogs smell buried. Remains conducted in October 2020. They found he withdrew $5,000 in cash 3 days after Rebecca disappeared. They found a receipt for concrete bags from Home Depot on October 16th. He didn't just hide her. He planned it. My life becomes a circus. Reporters camp outside Jenna's house. My photo is everywhere. Wife of accused killer. Woman who called police on husband. Some outlets paint me as a hero. Others imply I must have known. I take a leave of absence from the hospital. I can't focus on patients when my own life is imploding. Patricia advises me to stay off social media, avoid talking to anyone except her and the police, and under no circumstances should I contact Derek. Not that I want to, but he tries to contact me. Letters from jail. The first one arrives 2 weeks after his arrest. Claire, I know you're angry, but this is all a misunderstanding. It was an accident. I panicked. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please come visit me. We can work through this together. I love you, Derek. I show it to Patricia. She photocopies it and gives me one piece of advice. Don't respond. The second letter arrives a week later. It's different. You ruined everything. We had a good life until you couldn't mind your own business. This is your fault. If you'd just stayed out of the shed like I told you, everything would have been fine. You've destroyed us for nothing. I hope you can live with that. There it is. The real Derek. The one I've caught glimpses of for 5 years. I save every letter. Patricia says they demonstrate consciousness of guilt and a pattern of manipulation. They'll help the prosecution. Rebecca Martinez's family reaches out to me through their lawyer. They want to meet. I'm terrified, but I agree. We meet at a neutral location, a victim's advocate office in Denver, with Patricia present. Rebecca's mother, Elena Martinez, is a small woman with Rebecca's eyes. She holds my hands and thanks me. You found my daughter. You brought her home. We can finally lay her to rest. I start crying. I'm so sorry. I should have known sooner. You did know. You trusted your instincts. You did what so many women are afraid to do. She squeezes my hands. Thank you. Her husband, Robert, is quieter, angrier. That bastard took our daughter and buried her like trash. And you lived with him for 5 years afterward? Robert, Elena says sharply. It's okay, I tell her. He's right to be angry. I would be too. Did you know? Robert asks. Did you suspect? I knew something was wrong. I didn't know it was murder. I didn't know there was someone buried in our backyard. But I knew Derek was hiding something and I was too scared to push. Why? Because he made me feel crazy. Because every time I questioned him, he'd turn it around on me. Because I loved who I thought he was. And I didn't want to believe he was capable of this. Robert's face softened slightly. My daughter was 27. She was smart, careful. And he still got her. Men like that are good at hiding what they are. We talk for 2 hours. They tell me about Rebecca, how she was studying to be a teacher, how she loved hiking and had plans to travel to Costa Rica, how she called her mother every Sunday without fail, how when those calls stopped, they knew something was terribly wrong. The police gave up after 6 months, Elena says. They said she probably left voluntarily, started a new life somewhere, but a mother knows. I knew she was gone. I think about Detective Kim telling me to trust my instincts, about how women are trained to ignore their gut feelings, to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt, even when every alarm in their body is screaming danger. I'm going to testify, I tell them. At the trial, I'm going to tell them everything about who Derek really was. Thank you, Elena says. Make them see. Make them understand what he took from us. The trial is set for March 2026, 5 months away. In the meantime, I have to rebuild my life. I move back to Denver, get a small apartment in Capitol Hill. I can't go back to the house on Chambers Road. It's a crime scene anyway. But even after they release it, I can't imagine living there. I put it on the market, sell it at a loss. I don't care. I return to work at University Hospital. My colleagues are supportive but curious. I can feel their questions hanging in the air even when they don't ask them. How could you not know? What kind of person lives with a murderer and doesn't realize it? The kind of person who was carefully, methodically manipulated. That's what my therapist, Dr. Lisa Owens, tells me in our twice-weekly sessions. Derek was a sociopath, she explains. He knew exactly how to make you doubt yourself. Every time you questioned him, he'd make you feel like you were the problem. That's textbook gaslighting. But I should have been smarter. No, you should have been safe. This isn't about intelligence. This is about trust. You trusted your husband, and he exploited that trust. I start going to a support group for family members of criminals. It's held in a church basement on Wednesday nights, led by a counselor named Mark Stevens who specializes in trauma. There are 8 of us, mothers whose sons committed terrible crimes, a brother whose sister killed her children, a woman whose husband was a serial rapist. We all carry the same burden, the knowledge that we loved someone capable of evil. You're not responsible for what Derek did, Mark tells me after my first meeting. But you're allowed to grieve the person you thought he was. That loss is real. The trial starts on March 3rd. The Lindsay Flanagan courthouse in Denver is packed with reporters, spectators, Rebecca's family. I sit in the back, trying to be invisible. Patricia is beside me, briefing me on what to expect. The prosecution will call you as a witness, probably day 3 or 4. You'll testify about Derek's behavior, the changes you noticed, finding the license. The defense will try to make you look complicit or oblivious. Don't let them rattle you. Just tell the truth. Derek sits at the defense table in a suit, looking nothing like the man who grabbed my wrist and told me I'd regret calling the police. Marcus Webb has coached him well. He looks respectable, remorseful, like a man who made a terrible mistake. The prosecution's opening statement is devastating. They lay out the timeline. Derek hits Rebecca with his car on October 15th. Instead of calling 911, he puts her in his vehicle, probably unconscious but alive, and brings her to our house. He strangles her in our garage. He buries her under where the shed will be. He spends the next 2 days building the shed to cover his crime. He continues living his life, sleeping next to me every night for 5 years. The defense's opening statement claims accident and panic. Derek hit a pedestrian, yes, but she ran into traffic. She died instantly. He panicked and hid the body. Wrong, absolutely, but not murder. Except the medical examiner's testimony destroys that narrative. Rebecca didn't die instantly. She had defensive wounds on her hands, bruises on her throat consistent with manual strangulation. She fought for her life. On day 4, I'm called to testify. I walk to the witness stand with my heart hammering. I place my hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth. The prosecutor, Janet Rodriguez, is a veteran. She's prosecuted dozens of murder cases. She walks me through my marriage gently, establishing that I had no knowledge of Derek's crime. Mrs. Morrison, when did you first suspect something was wrong? October 2020. Derek changed overnight. He became secretive, paranoid, controlling. Can you give examples? I do. The locked shed, the late-night trips to the backyard, the way he'd shower at 3 a.m., the financial control, the gaslighting. Did you ever ask him what he was doing in the shed? Yes, multiple times. He said it was his private space, and I needed to respect his boundaries. What made you finally call the police? I found a driver's license belonging to Rebecca Martinez. I looked her up and discovered she'd been missing since October 2020, the same time Derek started acting strange. Did you confront your husband about the license? No, I was afraid of what he might do. Why were you afraid? Because by then I'd seen how he reacted when I questioned him. He'd grab me, corner me, make me feel like I was crazy for asking. I knew if I accused him of something this serious, it would be bad. Janet nods. So you called the police instead? Yes. I told them about the shed, about Derek's behavior, about the license. I asked them to investigate. Did your husband know you called the police? Not until they showed up with a warrant. How did he react? He called me paranoid. He said I was embarrassing him. He grabbed my wrist and told me I'd regret it. Objection, Marcus Webb says. Relevance, Your Honor. This establishes the defendant's consciousness of guilt and his pattern of intimidating the witness. Overruled. Continue. Janet shows me the letters Derek sent from jail. I identify them. She enters them into evidence. Mrs. Morrison, in one of these letters, your husband writes, "If you just stayed out of the shed like I told you, everything would have been fine." What do you think he meant by that? That if I hadn't called the police, Rebecca would still be buried in our backyard and he'd still be free. Marcus Webb's cross-examination is brutal. He implies I should have known sooner. He questions why I didn't notice my husband burying a body. He suggests I'm exaggerating Derek's controlling behavior to paint myself as a victim. Isn't it true, Mrs. Morrison, that you had access to that shed at any time? The key was on your husband's key ring, which was usually in your home. It was on a separate key ring that he kept hidden. But you could have looked for it. You could have insisted on entering the shed. My husband told me it was his private space. Or maybe you didn't want to know what was in there. Maybe you suspected something and chose to ignore it because it was easier than facing the truth. Patricia stands. Objection. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Marcus switches tactics. Mrs. Morrison, you've testified that your husband became controlling after October 2020, but you stayed with him for 5 more years. Why? Because he made me doubt my own perceptions. Because I loved who I thought he was. Because leaving felt more dangerous than staying. But you never contacted police until this October. 5 years later, I didn't know he'd killed anyone. I thought he was having an affair or hiding financial problems. I didn't imagine he'd murdered a woman and buried her in our backyard. Isn't it convenient that you claim total ignorance? That you somehow lived with a murderer and never suspected? I did suspect something was wrong. That's why I called the police. Marcus pauses, stares at me. Or maybe you knew all along. Maybe you helped him. Maybe that's why you waited 5 years to report, to make sure any evidence of your involvement was long gone. The courtroom erupts. Patricia is on her feet. The judge is banging his gavel. Janet is objecting. But Marcus has planted the seed. I can see it on some of the jurors' faces. Doubt. I spend another hour on the stand, answering variations of the same questions. By the time I'm dismissed, I'm shaking. Patricia guides me out of the courtroom. You did great, she says. Don't worry about Webb's insinuations. The physical evidence clears you, but I do worry. I worry that the jury will think I'm complicit, that they'll see me as a monster too. The trial lasts 3 weeks. The prosecution presents overwhelming evidence. Derek's phone searches, the concrete receipts, security footage showing him at Home Depot on October 16th buying supplies, testimony from neighbors who saw him building the shed alone, financial records showing he drained a savings account around that time, DNA evidence placing Rebecca in our garage. The defense tries to maintain the accident story, but it falls apart under scrutiny. You don't accidentally strangle someone. You don't accidentally bury them under a shed floor. You don't accidentally live with that secret for 5 years. On March 28th, the jury deliberates for 7 hours. When they return, the forewoman reads the verdict. We find the defendant, Derek Morrison, guilty of murder in the 2nd degree. Derek's face crumples. He starts sobbing. Marcus Webb puts a hand on his shoulder, whispers something. Elena Martinez cries in her husband's arms. The judge sets sentencing for April 15th. Derek faces 30 years to life. I don't attend the sentencing. I can't. Patricia goes and texts me the result. Life in prison with possibility of parole after 30 years. Derek Morrison will be 63 years old before he's eligible for release. Rebecca Martinez will still be dead. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment in Denver, sipping coffee and looking at the mountains in the distance. It's October again, 5 years since Rebecca died. 1 year since I called the police. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates with a social worker I met at the support group. His name is Thomas and he has kind eyes and he knows my whole story and doesn't judge me for it. I've written a book, Married to a Monster, How I Survived 5 Years with a Killer. My publisher thinks it'll be released next spring. Part of the proceeds will go to the Rebecca Martinez Memorial Scholarship for aspiring teachers. I've become an advocate for domestic violence victims. I speak at shelters, at colleges, anywhere they'll have me. I tell my story not because I want attention, but because I want other women to know, if something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Don't let anyone convince you you're crazy. The house on Chambers Road sold to a developer who razed it and built 2 townhomes. The shed is gone. Rebecca's body has been laid to rest in a cemetery in Denver, near her family. There's a headstone now with her dates and the words, "Beloved daughter stolen too soon." Sometimes I drive by the cemetery. I sit by her grave and tell her I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't figure it out sooner. Sorry I married the man who killed her. Sorry for all of it, but mostly I tell her thank you. Thank you for the license that fell from under the floor mat. Thank you for giving me the evidence I needed to finally trust my instincts and make the call that ended Derek's freedom and gave her family closure. Elena Martinez texts me sometimes. We've become friends in the way only people bonded by tragedy can be. She tells me I'm brave. I tell her I'm just trying to survive. She says that's the same thing. Derek writes me letters from prison. I don't open them. Patricia says I should save them in case they're needed for any future legal proceedings, but I don't have to read them. So they go into a box in my closet, unopened, unread. I'm in therapy once a week now instead of twice. Dr. Owen says I'm making progress, that I'm learning to trust myself again, to see the red flags I ignored, to understand that what happened wasn't my fault. Some days I believe her. Some days I still feel guilty for not knowing, for not saving Rebecca, for being the wife who lived in the house where a woman was buried and somehow didn't realize it. But then I remember what Detective Kim told me that first day. You did the right thing. Trust your instincts. I trusted my instincts. I called the police. I testified. I helped put a murderer in prison. That has to count for something. The truth is, you can live with someone for years and not really know them. You can share a bed, a home, a life, and still be strangers. Because some people are very good at hiding what they are. They're good at manipulation, at gaslighting, at making you doubt the evidence of your own eyes. But bodies don't lie. Evidence doesn't lie. The dirt under the shed floor, Rebecca's bones, Derek's phone records, they all told the truth he tried to bury. I learned something from all of this. The worst thing you can do is ignore that voice in your head telling you something is wrong. The voice that whispers danger when everything looks normal. The voice that says investigate, question, trust yourself. I ignored that voice for too long, but in the end I listened. And that made all the difference. My name is Claire Morrison. I was married to a murderer, but I'm not defined by his crimes. I'm defined by how I responded when I finally understood what he was. I'm the woman who called the police, who trusted her instincts, who helped bring a killer to justice and gave a family closure. I'm the woman who survived, and every day I wake up in my apartment, drink my coffee, and choose to keep surviving. That's the victory Derek can never take from me. The backyard is empty now, but Rebecca Martinez is finally home, and I'm finally free.